again, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the UK Glamping podcast, hosted by us here at Glampitect. A bit of a unique one for you this week. Our special guest is Sirus Keene. Thanks very much for coming along, Sirus.
Hey, Ollie, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. So this week, we've got a bit of a unique perspective in that Sirus has started as a client and ended up as a collaborator with us here at Glampitect. So a bit of an unusual journey. So just wanted to get Sirus's perspective on where he started from, how he kind of went through that process with us, and how he's got to the position that he's in now. So with that in mind, tell us a little bit about how you first discovered Glampitect and why you came across us.
Yeah, sure. First of all, it's great to be on. Thanks
Pleasure.
for having me on. It's a real honor and a privilege, and it's good to see you. I think it's been a while. The last time we've seen each other was at the Glamping show, I believe, in September last year.
Yeah, right enough. And that's coming around fast again this year, of course, around the 19th of September, I think.
Looking forward to seeing you there. Something like that, absolutely. So a little bit about me, definitely an unusual one. And I do hope that my story will still resonate with aspiring glampers out there, and anyone I can help out there, I'll obviously I will do that. Our story starts not probably dissimilar to most people who go, I wanted to go away and do something different. So my background is I've always been in the corporate game, played very much in the commercial space, in the boardroom, in international healthcare, cross-border healthcare programs and stuff like that, and did that for almost 20 years. And then left in 2017, left to go and do something else, started a consultancy, ran that for a while, had a lot of fun doing that as well. And my wife and I, who is also my business partner as well, she can't join today, her name's Gail, she took voluntary redundancy, and I was like, great, she's ex-boardroom, head of UK or ex-head of UK, come and work for my consultancy, and, two's better than one.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So at one point, we were on our honeymoon, and I had my clipboard out, and I was like, right, you could do all these various roles. And then she went, I don't want to do any of those things. And I was like, okay, what do you want to do then? What do you want to do then? And she was like, I want to be in the hospitality game. And I was like, okay, we've been together for 10 years. You've never said this. You've never kind of mentioned any of these dreams before. What made you think that? And she was just like, look, it's always been a dream of mine. I've never had the balls to say it. I've never had the guts to say it. But I think with you, we can do anything together. So we started looking into it, and it all literally started with a piece of paper going, do we want to do an Airbnb? Do we want a hotel? Do we want to buy a bar? Do we want a restaurant? And glamping was one of the wild cards that we had added on there. And it wasn't in anybody's sweet spot until I started doing the research on what glamping kind of really, really was. The fun, the culture of it, the people that are in the glamping industry, but also the ROI as well. And, how booming that the market is and how unsaturated the market really is. Because you hear a lot of stories about, the UK market's saturated, rah, rah. Well, from my perspective, it couldn't be any further from the truth. If anything, I can see the glamping industry growing, evolving, becoming more consistent, and its service becoming more quirky, becoming more fun. So we did not know where to start. And at one point I was like, well, we need to understand, ultimately it's a business. So can you make money in the glamping industry? And came into the Glampitect like that, doing a calculation and use your kind of calculator. And I remember being on the train and going, are these numbers right?
Yeah.
Are these numbers right? And then did a little bit of our own research in terms of looking what other glamping sites were doing, going on to Airbnb and looking at their rates and looking about their occupancy and calculating it and going, by golly, not only does the industry look loads of fun, there's also a healthy amount of money to be made in it as well. I remember being in London, coming off the train and calling Gail and going, we're now in the glamping business.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think it's fair to say a lot of people feel the same way when they first look at the kind of cost calculators and they go, surely I can't see a return on investment in under a couple of years. So it comes a bit of a shock to quite a lot of people.
But it is. Exactly that. So in order for us to do that, we had to make some kind of personal changes. We decided that we wanted to go all in. we actually sold our house. So we were very, very asset heavy. And we were like, you know what? We had our forever home. We were pretty much done. We were everything happy. And we were just in a position of, do we want to, work in a consultancy for the rest of the next 20, 25 years in a box? Or do we want to have an outside space? Do we want to be outside? What do we want to go away and do? So we made the decision to sell our house and put all of our money, all of our equity, put it all on the table and say, you know what, this looks like a lot of fun. Let's go away and do something. One last hurrah, one last adventure. And that was 2022 is when we started that process. Sold our house. We're still living in rented accommodation. Not sure Gil was the happiest about us still living in rented accommodation, but we're getting closer to where we want to be in terms of our dreams. And we submitted a tender for a campsite. It was a massive campsite in Aberfoyle, and really interesting one, and had the opportunity for you to build pods on there as well. Submitted a tender. It came back that we scored highest in the technical aspect of it, but the lowest in the financial aspect because our missus hadn't been signed yet and the house hadn't been completely through and all that good stuff. So we weren't successful in that opportunity. So we were just kind of licking our wounds. This must be September, October, November 2022, something like that. We were licking our wounds. And over the Christmas period, we were like, let's just take a break. And we both received an email in because we had received, we'd been on the Glampitect database. So we were starting to receive all kinds of emails, and we were going back and forward with Callum Moffat. And I'm sure you know Callum intimately. He did a couple of feasibilities for us. We had absolutely no idea. We were driving around the country, and we found all this amazing land which had SSSIs on it. And we were like, oh yeah, we can just build a glamping site there without any problems. And then Callum obviously...
Professional bubble burster at times, unfortunately, is...
a professional bubble burster. He was like, well, I can sell you a feasibility for that, but if I do, it would just be making money on it, and this wouldn't be fair. It's actually really amazing how much time Callum spent with us. So shout out to Callum for free, doing so much consultancy work for us at absolutely no cost, just for the love of the game. And that's really what gave us kind of the comfort and kind of the understanding in terms of what was going on around the glamping industry. Anyway, so that all kind of crystallized. Tough to find land, really, really difficult to find land, specifically up in Scotland, specifically where we wanted to be in a very, beautiful location and whatnot. And everything that was coming up was, either SSSI or just what the ground wasn't suitable or whatever. So moving on, Christmas time, we both received an email from Callum MacLeod, who we'd never spoken to at this point in time. We'd only been speaking to the various employees, including Callum, at Glampitect, saying, hey, there is a really cool, I've got a really cool investment opportunity. And we looked at each other and we were like, well, we've got liquid cash sitting there now. Our house is sold. Why don't we split our assets and go 50% investment and 50% we'll go away and do something else. Callum was in Dubai. We did a couple of calls with Callum, and immediately from day one, we just felt comfortable around Callum, and we felt that it was a really exciting opportunity that he was bringing to the table. So yeah, the opportunity was a glamping site at the NEC, which on paper shouldn't work because the NEC is the biggest event space in the country, and it's a concrete jungle by and large. But the vision that the NEC and that Callum have been crystallizing over the last 4 years was to leverage a 3-4 acre woodland that sits right in the heart of the NEC, just outside of the train station and just across from Resorts World, and to actually build an eco resort.
It's quite an incredible vision that's gone on, and we've touched on it in a few previous episodes, on one with Callum and one with a couple of other guys, and we have got a future episode coming up where we're going to look into it in a bit more detail and provide some visuals for our listeners and watchers. But it's fair to say it's an incredibly ambitious project that's taken a little bit of time to come to fruition.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, and we can get into it as well in terms of the pitfalls and the learnings that we've taken, because we went from literally being in the corporate boardroom to building probably the largest and most prominent glamping site in the UK. with absolutely no experience whatsoever. And I guess, if we can do it, kind of two people who've been in the corporate game for a long time, then anyone can do it, specifically if you've already got land or if you've already got, a vision in terms of what you want to do. That's what I would say. That would be my
Yeah,
advice
absolutely.
to
And you touched earlier on the fact that Gail's not available to join us today, unfortunately, but hopefully we'll be able to catch up with her for a future episode, because I know she is incredibly well versed on the kind of logistical side of how to run a site and how to kind of put these sorts of little bits and pieces together, and the project management aspect of it. So hopefully the listeners will get the benefit of her experience before too long. But
we'll try and weasel her on. She's been squirming out of it, but I'm sure we'll get her on at one point. Yeah. So NEC, how did that start? Obviously, we worked very closely together with Callum to get the right deal. We ended up investing all of our available assets and liquidity into the project because it was just such a cool project and the relationship that had been built. We were at pre-app stage. We just gone through the pre-application and got quite a favourable response back from the council. And we just evolved. The project worked very closely together with Glampitect. And I'm sure you've kind of covered some of this ground, so I'll kind of try and skim over some of it. But if you've got any specific questions, Ollie, and you want me to bite into anything, just
so we covered it very briefly with Callum in a previous episode, and so our regular listeners will be aware that ground has now been broken, and kind of there's a little bit of work in progress.
Cool. Right,
but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So learnings from my perspective. I'd never done a planning app before. Had no idea. Obviously, we worked together with the Glampitect and with a large number of external consultancies to make sure that things like the B&G, which Solihull Council were really big on, and obviously that's across the UK now. Well, specifically across England. B&G is absolutely massive.
Can you tell everyone a little bit more about what that is? Because that's often an acronym that we deal with kind of day to day. But I think we get so used in this line of work to kind of abbreviating everything. So SSSIs, like you mentioned earlier, is a site of specific scientific interest. Then we've got AONBs and we've got PEAs, and we've got so many different initials running through our head that I think I certainly sometimes take for granted that people know what they are. But BNG is a massive hot button topic for the whole of the UK at the moment. So can you shed a little bit more light on that? Because that was a real sensitive issue for this site, wasn't it?
Yeah. So BNG is bio net gain, and it is literally all about the ecological impact that your development, be it a glamping site, be it a commercial property that you're building, being a house that you want to build somewhere, has on the actual ecological environment in your surroundings. And there are new rules that have been put in place around the B&G requirements. That means that every single site in the UK now has to have a +10 scoring. So basically that means that you need to, whatever that you're building, you need to actually improve what you had before. Now that can be done in various ways. We looked at it from an on-site perspective, so we wanted to know whether we could do this on-site. So we did quite a lot on-site. We enhanced the woodland. We built a tree management plan that is going to preserve the woodland that we're building in. It's going to build additional trees, have additional landscaping to really improve it. Because at the end of the day, the ethos of what we're doing is to enhance all the ecology around us. Now, ecology is not just plants. It's all the bugs. It's all the animals. It can be bats. It can be whatever is around you, preserving that. A lot of councils are very strict around the B&G numbers, so it is a very hot topic, and you do need to be careful. It can be a costly affair, so it is something that I would absolutely work together with a consultant on. I would work together with someone like the Glampitect. I would work together with an ecological expert who can help you through those pitfalls, because those calculations are not straightforward. And I would say that this is probably where it can either get costly if you don't do it right the first time, or it can get really complicated and you can get lost in the process. So this is where I would absolutely work together with, the experts who can guide you through that process.
It's interesting you say that, because that echoes what Callum said and what a couple of our other guests have said about get the advice early and do it right first time. Because it can be something that's so straightforward to do, because glamping by its nature, people
Yeah.
want to be in a rural setting or certainly an environmentally friendly setting. So by its very nature, you're going to have a landscaping plan that will lend itself to some aspect of this BNG. But by making sure that all those numbers add up before you start putting spades in the ground, you can save yourself an awful lot of money on the back end.
100%. There is ways to do on-site. There's also ways to do it off-site. Through greenwashing, through planting initiatives, by working together with the local council. There is a lot, and I would absolutely say that would be my number one. At the moment, it's the whole topic that's going around all the councils in England. Not so much in Scotland. We don't have, obviously, there is a massive ecological focus in Scotland, but there aren't any kind of +10 requirements at the moment. It'll be interesting to see if they get pulled through. Ollie, I don't know if you know anything about that already in terms of whether there are any developments happening in Scotland.
Yeah, nothing official as yet, but like anything, it is coming. Of course it is. I mean, it's one of these things that they're not going to ignore forever. We are blessed up here in Scotland in that we do have a little bit more kind of open space available per capita than England does, which is probably why it hasn't quite got to us just yet. But likewise, with the attention England are paying to phosphates and nitrate levels in the water tables and the importance of proper kind of sewage management, we expect that to follow on. Likewise with the BNG. So it's a case of make your plans early and make them robust, and that way you're protected against any kind of future policy that might come in.
Exactly that. And work together with the council. If there's one thing that I've learned is the council will be collaborative as long as you're collaborative as well, and that kind of collaboration goes a long way into getting the information that you need. The council is not always at liberty to share, all the information, and I always feel that if you can build a good relationship with your council planning team, they'll work together with you to help you rather than work against you. I always think that's really important.
Yeah, it's so important, and I think that's one thing we stress as when we deal with clients early and in their processes, that the importance of feasibility studies and in some instances pre-planning, because in some respects that initial engagement with the council can be a bit of an exercise in ego management and just displaying to them that you have done your research and you're not taking it lightly. I think as soon as you can establish that kind of positive relationship with a planning officer, you get so much more back than I think a lot of clients expect. Like every client we speak to is like, "Oh, our council's the worst council in the UK," and I think then I mean I get it, because it's never fun asking for permission. It's always nicer to do something first and ask for forgiveness later. But asking for permission up front certainly leaves you with a clearer conscience and a much clearer route forward for your plans, without a doubt.
Yeah, like I also think that specifically if you're trying to enact your dreams, like glamping, it's become a labor of love of ours. It's become a dream of ours. I would never have thought that 15, 20 years ago. But when I kind of look at where I am right now, having played the corporate game already, and wanting to do something fun, wanting to do something interesting, more so than being in the boardroom, do something for us, for legacy, for the kids. You want to do it. You want to do it right, and that investment, that monetary investment that you make, your own money, your own blood, sweat, and tears. You don't want to pour that down the drain by building, poor relationships with your council, and your council being, a little bit more stringent on specific things, which just going to cost you more money. So, and it's easy to be nice, and it's nice to be nice.
No, 100%.
And you get more with your than you get.
I completely agree. And glamping is an industry that I think takes a lot of people by surprise. And as soon as you start kind of scraping away at those first few levels of inquiry, it's an industry that can really get really interesting very quickly. Like I was the same as you. I came from a very corporate background before working with Glampitect. I spent 10, 12 years working in corporate car sales, doing big fleets, and it's one of them that until I made that switch, I didn't realize how bored I was in what I was doing before. I'm working in something that
100%
is just so much more exciting when you think about these kind of outdoor spaces and what you're potentially leaving behind for future generations. It's not a 3-year PCP debt on an old Jaguar. It's you go home with a little bit less weight on your shoulders now than I did before. That's for sure.
Absolutely. what I also like is how it links up to the future thinking of customers and what customers want. And it's interesting. I wanted to make a point to talk about that. When you look at the guest experience from 15 years ago, it was predominantly hotels. Unless you were backpacking in Thailand or you're backpacking in Indonesia or somewhere or other, they're obviously kind of the front runners. But when you look at the UK pre-COVID, literally pre-COVID, I hate that we're bringing it up, but it's just one of those milestones that made a cataclysmic shift. And then the way that people think and the way that people operate. When you look at, the guest experience pre and post COVID, it's shifted fundamentally because the guests want something else. Guests predominantly are now looking for experiences rather than material items. So we will see, a lot of people looking at wanting to go somewhere quirky, wanting to go somewhere special, where those Instagrammable moments are coming up, and making it fun. And that makes this industry a lot of fun to do, because it's not just your standard concrete jungle or a standard, Airbnb building, in a tenement somewhere. You're building something that will create lasting memories for whoever is going to be your guest, and that's the part that I really, really like. It really ties up with the shift that we're seeing in that kind of Gen Z, Gen X, that these new generations coming through, what they want and what they're looking for. It really, really aligns with that market, and we're seeing that market kind of coming through. It was interesting because I was looking at some stats of Canopies and Stars a little while ago, and they were showing that more than 60% of their new customers are Gen X and Gen A's. And it's a growing market. So it's really, really cool to kind of be engaged with that in that space where you can be different, you can be quirky, you can make it as fun as you want to, or you can make it as conservative as you want to as well, and still land to your target market. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely, yeah. We see the full spectrum. I think it's fair to say when we first started as a company, a lot of our initial customers were probably not Gen X. They were probably landowners, farmers predominantly, that were coming towards a point where they were considering handing over to their kids or the younger generation. But yeah, certainly the last 12 months or so, we've seen a real kind of uplift in the younger generation, Gen X, looking to either procure land if they don't have it already, or looking to make the most of land that's perhaps been in the family for a little while. So it's a real broad spectrum.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point. That's an interesting one because land diversification is such a thing right now. I think when you go back, 100 years, massive estates having, massive acreages and having farms. Farming is evolving, is changing. We don't need as much space. Estates aren't bringing in the same amount of money as they used to in the old traditional ways.
Well, estates is a huge one. Like even big country estates that have got existing hotels, we're seeing more and more of them approaching us saying, look, we need to diversify our offering outside the cashmere suite or wherever it might be, and we want to offer something else on site, a different kind of experience. So I think diversification is the name of the game. Whether you're a farmer, whether you're an existing hotelier, it's massive.
Yeah, and it's funny because if you only look at the peripheral of glamping, you could very easily underestimate how it can help you prop up your business, how it can diversify your income. People go, oh, it's a pod in the field somewhere. A, no one's going to come, and B, I'm only going to be able to charge 30 or 50 pounds a night, whilst nothing could be further from the truth. Your occupancy levels could be really, really high, and if you market it right and you manage it right, in a year or two, you could be charging, triple, quadruple that. And specifically, if you bring emerging trends there, like a bit of wellness, some cold water therapy, chuck a hot tub on, or, stuff like that, it can get really, really interesting really quickly, and it can be very profitable. And I think that's what some of these estates are beginning to understand. Some of these kind of larger landowners, hotels, we're seeing that now coming in more and more, whereby they realize that the ROI is there, the customer base is there, and the UK hasn't been saturated yet, and it's going to. I feel that it's booming at the moment, which is it's great for the industry.
Yeah, ironically, to coin a farming phrase, you reap what you sow 100% in this industry. If you'll forgive me for the tenuous pun.
Absolutely.
It's 100% like that. If you're willing to put the time in, the returns are there for sure. Look, I think that's been a really interesting insight for people to see where a customer like yourself, who came from a point of kind of no knowledge to arguably one of the industry experts now, and just how quickly you can get from A to B. So thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat through that all with us today. Way we like to wrap up most episodes is just ask if you've got kind of one nugget of advice or piece of advice that you might offer anyone who is starting out where you were those few years ago. Have you got a pearl of wisdom you can offer?
So there are so many pearls of wisdom that I've been picking up along the way, coming in from working for the man to being an entrepreneur and kind of being in this space. I think the first one is just believe in yourself. That you would be surprised how many people I speak to who have got these kind of one day, someday dreams, and they just land on the breakfast table and they don't go beyond it. And what I would just say is jump in, go away and do it. Don't be afraid of it. Go away and do it. Surround yourself with the right people. Do your research. Surround yourself with the right people, but jump in with both feet, because it would be a waste if you look back in 20 years' time and go, oh, I wish I had done something with that plot of land, what that could have been and whatever. The market is perfect for it. So yeah, I would just say jump in. Then I would say, like I said, find the right people. Find with people that you can trust, that you can work with. Companies like Glampitect. There's a lot of manufacturers out there who are really, really reputable. The market is evolving. Yeah, that's
Fantastic.
What I would say.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Those are the two ones. I can give you 10. I can sit here for the next 20 minutes, but I don't want to.
Yeah, we try and keep it snappy for our listeners. So just in case they're listening in the car, we don't want them drifting off and causing an accident. So like always, we will put all our contact details in the episode description. So please, if you're at any stage of considering a glamping site, if you're already running one and need a bit of help, wherever you are, if you're in the industry, think you might get in the industry, give us a call. We'd love to have a chat and see how we might be able to help. Once again, thanks very much, Sirus.
Yeah, and it was for me as well.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Take care.
Thanks, Ollie.